Thank you so much. This is an enormously impressive gathering, as I'm sure that you know, and it's quite wonderful to be able to have the opportunity to speak to you, and I want to tell you how I would like to speak to you. I'm talking to you as an insider and an outsider. The truth is that as much as I have spent time with the Persian community, I am not of the Persian community. And so I want to give you a perspective on who you are from someone who is not you. And if you want to know how much, because I know people will always tell me, no, you are a part of the community, which is an expression of sentiment that I have learned to call ta'aruf. Because you know that I am, but I'm not. And if you want to know how much I am not, I will tell you this story, but don't let it get out of this room. That when I first came to Sinai Temple and I did the first funeral that I officiated at for someone in the Persian community who had passed away, we were gathered around the grave. And someone, because you know it is traditional to say the Besomim blessing, to revive your spirit when someone has passed, in the Persian tradition, someone was passing around rose water. And everybody was taking it and smelling it and saying the blessing. But of course, I had never seen such a ceremony before, and it was very hot in the valley. Yep. So Jimmy Delshad was kind enough to pass me the bottle of water, and I thought, oh, how nice. It's hot. And they're passing me some water. Let me just tell you that rose water is disgusting. But at that moment, I realized how much I had to learn about the Persian community before I did my next funeral. And so coming here today, I thought, what is it that I'm supposed to talk about? Because Sam, in his graciousness, didn't say, we want you to talk about this or that. He said, just come and say whatever it is you want to say. And the truth is that I knew that you would have many speakers who would talk to you about political issues. You don't need to hear about Israel from me. And you don't need to hear about the threat of a nuclear Iran from me. I want to talk to you about you. Because in the past 15 years that I've been the rabbi at Sinai Temple, and I have spoken to so many of you in my office, in coffee shops, at dinners, I've heard three themes over and over and over again. Sometimes they were explicit. Sometimes they were hidden. Very often they were about someone else, but they were really about you. And that's what I want to talk to you about, because it's not what the politicians who will visit you are going to say, and it's not what the speakers about issues are going to say, but it's where you live. The first thing I want to talk to you about is the struggle of ego. Because ego is not only a struggle for all human beings, but also especially afflicts the Persian community in a particular way. As a successful immigrant community, you both are tremendously confident and tremendously insecure. And I have been struck by how these two syndromes intertwine in almost everything I see from the community. You know and I know that to have an immigration to the United States that is suddenly spectacularly successful is almost unprecedented. And you know and I know that the slightest whisper about any depredation or problem or pathology or difficulty in the Persian community sends shockwaves through the entire community. And what I want to tell you is that nobody is as good as they think they are in their best moments, and nobody is as bad as they think they are in their worst. You know that phrase of Rabbi Simcha Bunim that everybody should carry 2 pieces of paper in their pocket? One says, Bishvili nivra ha'olam, for me the world was created. And when you're depressed and when you're sad and when you feel as though you're worth nothing, he said that one you should take out. And the other says, Afar va'efer, that I'm dust and ashes. And sometimes when you think you're the best thing going, remember that you are fleeting, that we are all fleeting, that tomorrow we will be gone. And sometimes you need to take that out and look at it. And what I would say to you is you are an extraordinary community. But because you're an extraordinary community, you have to have deep self-confidence, and deep self-confidence means that you have to be open to critiques, and they shouldn't shake your foundations, they should help you grow. In fact, now that I am getting older, actually happened a while ago, but I'll talk about it now, I will tell you a secret for those of you who are young about getting older. When you're young, you assume when you get older that your confusion will be dissipated and you will figure stuff out, and the things that bother you when you're younger, finally, you'll get the answer. I'm sorry to tell you from the frontiers, it doesn't happen that way. Let me tell you what you can look forward to as you get older. Deeper and more complex confusion. That's what you'll get. Not that you will figure it all out, but your questions will go deeper, your wondering will go deeper, your self-criticisms will go deeper, your appreciations of your strength and weakness will go deeper. So easy. Easy. You don't have to be the best because no one is the best. You don't have to be perfect because the job description for perfection is already filled. It's called the Kadosh Baruch Hu. God gets to be perfect. We can be imperfect. But don't ever let yourself feel worthless because you're in God's image. That's true as individuals and as a community. Deep self-confidence can listen to criticisms and also knows its worth. You know, the rabbis tell us that the reason God gave the Torah on Sinai is because Sinai is a low mountain. So a later rabbi asks, well, if that's true, that God gave the Torah on a low mountain because we're supposed to learn humility, why didn't God give it in a valley? If you're going to teach humility, go teach humility. And his answer is, humility is knowing that you should be humble when you're a mountain. In other words, when you're worth something, when you have gifts, when you have talents, when you have blessings, that's when it matters to be humble. So the first thing that I wish you is the kind of humility that is also self-confidence. Don't be so worried about what people outside the Persian community say or what people inside the Persian community say. Instead, listen and learn from it. And let me tell you what they talk about, although you already know. Now I want to talk about what is euphemistically called resources, but really the word is money. Let's talk money. Now I want to tell you my own personal prejudice, which is I want Jews to be as rich as possible. But I'll tell you why. Not so they can build bigger houses and drive bigger cars. Because it is an illusion that money makes you good. Money makes you rich. Goodness makes you good. And you can be a miserable SOB who drives a big car. But money is power. It may not be fair in the world that it's true, but that is true. It's not the only kind of power, but it's an important kind of power. So if you treasure money, you should treasure what it can do in this world. And if your money doesn't do something good, you should have no use for it. Nowhere in our tradition does it say it's important to be rich. Lots and lots of places it says it's important to be good. and the more power you have for goodness in the world, the better you are. And if in our tradition there is one lesson that is reinforced again and again and again, it is this: if you live only for yourself, then God has wasted a soul on you. So tell me who else you live for, what else you do. And then I'll say that the blessings you've been given are worth it. And here's the third. If someone comes to my office and they're not talking about ego and they're not talking about money, let me tell you what they're talking about. They're talking about love. They're talking about the search for it, the disappointments of it, the pain of it, the desire for it. You know, the very first thing that the Torah says about human beings is lo tov heyot adam levado. It's not good for someone to be alone. And there are lots of ways of making connections, but we all need them, and we need them profoundly, and you feel it in your community. And there is a pressure that all of you feel to find love, to find marriage, to raise families, not to be alone. So here's what I want to say to you about that. Please understand that love is not an emotion alone. Love is how you treat one another. Love is an emotion enacted in the world. Love is not a deadline. And it's not something that has an expiration date, and it's not something you must achieve by a certain age. And it's not guaranteed. And it must be forever renewed. And there are many different kinds of love. There's love of families, and love of friends, and love of spouses, and love of lovers. And your life can be filled with many different kinds of love, even if it doesn't have the love that your parents think you should have. So don't let that alone define your life. I guess what at bottom I'm saying to you all is what the poet Yeats said when he wrote, "The world is full of more weeping than you can understand." There's a lot of striving and confusion and suffering and difficulty in the world. And the more you admit that to yourself, the less judgmental and harsh you will be about your neighbor. And the less judgmental and harsh you will be about your neighbor, the more you will be able to let them in. The less you will feel that the only way you can be who you are is by rejecting who the other person is. Isaiah said, you should deepen your stakes and broaden your tent. In other words, the more you are rooted in your self-knowledge, the more open you can be. As Sam said in his generous and beautiful introduction, this is a community that is incomparably blessed. And that is a wonderful thing. But of course, every blessing has a price. Every blessing has a price. So what do you have to do? You have to return to what Emerson called the holiness of the heart's affections. You have to return to who you are at your base. You have to understand that the loves of your life have something to teach you, but they alone don't define you. That what you accumulate may help you realize who you are, but do not define who you are. And that ultimately, apart from all the connections you have and all the community you have, every soul stands individually, late at night, eyes open, before God. And you have to believe in that accounting of what it is you have done in this world that would realize God's will and that which is best in you. I know, and you know, that after you leave here, you will go back out into this world which will throw at you 1,000 distractions, 1,000 images, some of them foolish and silly, and some of them profound and deep. And what I'm asking you to hold on to is that central teaching that ultimately every soul has to stand before its Maker, however you think of God. And you have to say, what have I done with what you gave me? God has given you much. Do a lot with it. Not only for you, not only for your family, but for our people and for the world. I told you at the beginning that I was an insider and an outsider. Now I want to tell you what I really mean. I'm not of the Persian community, but I love the Persian community. You have shown me things and taught me wonderful dimensions of being Jewish that I never knew. And even though I will always stand inside and outside, I want you to know, and I am not alone, that we are cheering for you. And we hope that you will both learn from us and teach us. And that together, when the time comes that we stand before the Kadosh Baruch Hu, before God, that we will feel as though we have in fact drawn closer to what is best in our souls, drawn closer to one another, made God's world a little bit better, and fulfilled that mysterious and wonderful mission for which he has sent each of us individually and each of us as a spark of Israel to his benighted, beleaguered, needy, yet loving world. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce one of this evening's keynote speakers, the Honorable David Siegel. David Siegel assumed the post of Consul General of Israel in Los Angeles in August 2011.